All right, welcome back to another episode of Two Plane Sports. For today's episode, we're going to talk about a couple of guys that have entered the portal that Oklahoma should be targeting. And some of these guys are expected to be visiting Norman here very soon. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. You guys know what to do. Let's get into it. All right. That intro is going to be fun to listen to every time we do this.
It gets me every time. I love it.
All right, so Oklahoma is in portal season. We've lost 10 to the portal so far. If I counted correctly, I think Brandon,
I
you saw
believe
10 as well, right?
10 is the number at the moment.
Yep. Two of them, for the time being, are wide receivers. So that's where we're going to start. Oklahoma, as many people know by now, have lost Jaquez Petaway and Nick Anderson to the portal. As of today, when we're recording this, December 9th, at a little before 7:30 at night, that seems like those are the only two wide receivers that are going to be entering the portal.
Can't say
From
that. Can't say that.
it
We're
seems, it
not first
seems,
last season. Yeah.
it seems. Who knows? We still have a few days. Technically, I guess we still have another week and a half that they can enter the portal. But fingers crossed. That's it on the wide receiver front of this portal exit for Oklahoma. Now, that means they've got to replace them. Yes, you brought in two high school recruits into this wide receiver room, but you want to bring in some talent, especially after losing a guy like Nick Anderson that had a lot of promise. If it wasn't for the injury, which I'm sure plenty of people know about by now, if you watch the In the Weeds episode with Eichert and Lehman. If you haven't, I would suggest to go watch it, even if you don't want to hear about the actual injury. I think it just gives some good insight as to how that decision came to fruition for Nick Anderson. So Oklahoma's got to turn their focus to this portal season for probably maybe two or three wide receivers, just depending on what their roster looks like, their head count. Two names that have been out there very publicly so far have been former Indiana wide receiver Donovan McCulley and former Arkansas wide receiver in Isaiah Satanga. We can start with McCulley. He wasn't on this Indiana squad this season due to injury, so really he hasn't played football in over a year now. But when he did play, he was pretty talented. We got to look at the bad Indiana team before this year. He had a pretty solid outing for his first couple of years there. I think with they're kind of recruiting McCulley put with the hope that he could be something like Andrell Anthony. If you guys remember Andrell coming out of Michigan, he didn't have any crazy numbers. He really didn't have any numbers. He was a guy that was on the bench, wasn't played much, and then he came to Oklahoma and he popped off. If you look at his first 6 games as the Oklahoma wide receiver, he was Oklahoma's wide receiver one. He was probably the best wide receiver and the one that was most impactful for Oklahoma. So, Brandon, talk about both the guys that and what you've seen so far with Isaiah and Donovan. Are they guys that Oklahoma should be all in on? Is there someone else in the field that maybe they need to wait for, or that you would like them to go after that is currently in the portal?
I think Donald McCulley is a really good start. Is a really good place to start. You look at what he did. Obviously, this year he was injured, but you look at 2023. He put up 645 yards and 6 touchdowns. Those are pretty efficient numbers out of a very bad school in Indiana in 2023. I know they were good this season. They were not very good in 2023. He was out there putting up numbers. He was trying to do his part to help the Hoosier offense out. He's a guy that has size, speed. There's a lot to like in Donald McCulley. I think it's gonna from everything you've read and looked at and stuff, it looks like it's going to be a Oklahoma versus Michigan battle. I know, I think Virginia Tech is also in the mix there, but I think McCulley was a guy who was supposed to be on campus today, December 9th, the day we're recording. His visit was scheduled, so we'll see how that goes. We'll see what news comes out of there. But he's a guy that's 6'5", 200. I think having two 6'5" receivers could be a lot of fun, assuming Jaden Gibson does make the return. Then you have if nothing else, having 2 6'5" guys when you get into the red area is pretty dangerous. I think that is pretty would be pretty neat. We'll hope everything goes well with that visit, and we'll hope Oklahoma lands him. I think he's a guy that could kind of push. He can kind of push for playing time right away. I think if you were to commit to Oklahoma, even if you get the 4 guys in Farouk, Andrew Anthony, Jaden Gibson, and Deion Burks back, I think he's a guy he's pushing for significant playing time day one. I think Isaiah Satanga is the other guy that people are going to look at and stuff, and I think he is going to be more of the project type role. He didn't do much at Arkansas. He made that nice catch on a deep ball against Auburn that everybody has the highlight of. But 37 catches, 491 yards, and a touchdown. Not a bad player. He's a guy that would work too. I think if I had to put it into a list of priority wise, I think I'd go Donovan McCulley 1 and Satanga 2 at the moment. But I think both good players, and hopefully we land both, if not one of them.
Yeah, and looking at Satanga, I mean, Arkansas was a 6-6 squad this year. Their leading receiver, Andrew Armstrong, really did all of the work for them in the passing side of the offense, 78 receptions and 1,140 yards. Satanga was number 2 with 37 receptions. That's their second leading in reception, and then their second leading in yards. Total 491, like you mentioned. It is just that lack of red zone targets that probably hurt him to have maybe a better overall season. He's a 5'11" dude, so it'll be something that we'll see how much, if Oklahoma were to get him, we would see how much he actually gets to play. Because as of right now, as things stand, you have Deion Burks coming back, who can be your everywhere guy. He can play outside and inside and get an ideal situation if everyone's healthy. It seemed like he was more slotted to play in the slot receiver spot. Then you would have Jaden Gibson coming back as an outside wide receiver, Jalil Farouk coming back as an outside wide receiver. So if you do end up taking these 2 guys, you have them as your backups for, Isaiah Tango probably your backup slot, and then Donovan McCulley as a backup wideout, which isn't not a bad spot to be in with how Oklahoma has been rotating a lot, really on both sides of the field. So both of those wide receivers would not be a bad place to start. I wouldn't be surprised if Oklahoma continues to see what enters the portal. I think they're being a lot more aggressive portal wise than they have been in the past. They also have shown that they're pretty good at evaluating the talent that they want. Outside of last year for the offensive line, they brought in decent transfers elsewhere. Des Malone was not a bad pickup. Did he have his bonehead plays? Yes, but so did everyone else. So it wasn't like he was the one bad spot in the cornerback room. So I think they've done a good job of evaluating what they need. They just need to get the best guys at the positions of need now moving forward. All right. Next couple of guys that we're going to talk about here is one guy that Oklahoma's familiar with. This staff, not so much, just because he was part of the 2021 recruiting class, but Cam Dewberry, interior offensive lineman, transferring from Texas A&M. At one point, Oklahoma was right there at the top, battling A&M, where he ended up. Texas and Oklahoma was right there, as I just mentioned. Oklahoma, I think it's fair to say, is in need of at least some depth at the offensive line spot. I would go as far as to say mainly in the interior part of the offensive line. We've traditionally been recruiting tackles over the last few recruiting cycles that I assume Coach B is trying to get them to transition into the guard positions. So sometimes it can be a longer adjustment for that kind of transition. And if Cam Dewberry is already playing decently well as an interior offensive lineman, why not go get him? He played high school at the same high school where incoming running back Torrey Blaylock out of Scotia, I think, from Humboldt, Texas. So there might be some familiarity there. I don't know, maybe family friends. I know Derek Blaylock, Tori's dad, was on Twitter earlier today saying, come join Oklahoma. Not a bad place to start recruiting. Pure peer to peer, parent to parent.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be a lot of fun. He's a guy that is going to play on the inside, and that's definitely where you have your weaknesses, where you have your holes, where you're going to have a need for competition. I think Hito Zaida really came on towards the end of the season. I think we really liked how he looked at left guard. I think Troy Everett played pretty nice at center. That right guard spot. I mean, I guess even Fabechi Nawayu, whatever, was playing pretty good at right guard. But I mean, you never have enough guys. We saw a rotating chair of offensive linemen this season. It'd be nice to get that solidified in the offseason going into next year, no matter which five you're going to start. But you got a guy like Eddie Pierre-Louis there right now, Fabechi Nawayu at right guard, and now Cam Dewey maybe is a guy that can push all three of them in Ozida, Nawayu, and EPL. Just bringing more competition. He's a big guy, 6'4", 330. It never hurts to get a guy like that on your front. He's a guy that has a little bit of SEC experience playing at A&M, or at least practicing with A&M. It's a position of need, if nothing else, for depth. I'd like to see it work out for Oklahoma.
And then last guy we're going to talk about here is one that Oklahoma is familiar with from the last cycle, I believe, or maybe 2023. Tassili Akana. Brent Venables was extremely high on him out of Lehigh, Utah. He was what every insider, recruiting analyst that covers Oklahoma exclusively talked about as Brent Venables' ideal cheetah prospect. It has not worked out at Texas. One of the many reasons he went to Texas because he had, I think, his older sister was there as a volleyball player. As if some people don't remember, Tassili Akana was all but done for Oklahoma. He was supposed to be committed to the University of Oklahoma, and rumors, reports, whatever you want to call them, apparently there was just Oklahoma maybe was a little too confident on the day of his commitment, and Texas was able to make a good final push to get his commitment there on the last day. He's now in the transfer portal. Does Oklahoma revisit that and kind of get him as a project? Let's see if Brett Venables can make him that ideal cheetah that he's been looking, or that he thought he could have made him a few years back.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be, I mean, did Oklahoma feel like they got burned by Tassili Akana? Did he give them their word that he was coming? Did all that stuff happen and he ended up committing in Texas? Maybe he burned a bridge. I don't know. I don't know the situation there. That was a saga, if nothing else, that entire recruitment process of Tassili Akana. We talked about him for hours, over multiple videos, over multiple live streams, or 100% we thought Tassili Akana was going to be an Oklahoma Sooner. He was Brent Venables' guy. Brent Venables, put a target on him. That was his guy. He was recruiting like individually, and it just, for whatever reason, didn't work out. So it's going to be interesting to see if a guy they were super high on at one point, super interested in, if they still have that same level of interest, or if, I feel like if there was no bridges burned, if there was no bad blood, I don't see any reason why Oklahoma would not at least throw their hat in the ring for his services. However, that if for whatever reason they feel like he got, or he burned them or whatever, I don't see a world in which we'd go back after him. But it's going to be a fun few weeks. I think it's a guy that we talked about, the linebacker depth. You're really confident in the guys that you're going to play next year, at least at the starting level. With Kip Lewis, obviously that dude's a monster. I think Kobe McKenzie played really well. I think Lewis Carter's a guy that has a lot of potential. Sammy Asigo played well in the cheetah role. So there's guys.
Canic. We didn't even talk about him when we were doing that little
video. Yeah, he's still here for now. Yeah, there's guys you do trust and guys you like. But especially if he's a cheetah, Kendall Dolby is a high level cheetah. He's the dude's a stud. If he comes back fully healthy and he's the Kendall Dolby that we kind of started to see through 4 weeks, he's gonna be the guy the whole season. But he did get hurt late September 21st in that Tennessee game. We saw with Andrell getting down. Obviously, a little bit later, he got hurt in the Texas game. So, a couple weeks after Kendall Dolby's injury. But you never know how these recovery processes go and how things like that shape out. If KD will be ready 100% by day one. If not, be cool to have Tassili Akana up there and kind of pushing with Sammy Asigo, if nothing else, for the backup cheetah role once Kendall Dolby is back, and guys that will play maybe some goal line packages or some, just kind of on a rotational basis with Dolby out, or if McCall is not out there, whatever. There's there's a lot of depth along that linebacker room, but you can never have too much. And especially if, Brent Venables saw a role for him as a cheetah. Obviously, he lost a year of developing under Brent Venables by going to Texas, so he's going to be starting at square one. I doubt if he commits to Oklahoma, he's going to be a guy that really sees the field a whole lot in year one, if we're being honest. But maybe year two or so with I bet if Dolby has another year like he was projected to have this year, what he was looked like he was going to have, I think Kendall Dolby's going to be a first or second rounder, so he'll be gone. And then go out there and compete with Sammy Masigo.
I agree. It's going to be an interesting thing to watch if Oklahoma revisits some of those recruitments that they ended up losing there at the end, especially for another guy that, and we don't have to, and we won't dive deep into it, but like Brownlow Dindy, it's a guy that was once committed to Oklahoma, left when the staff got hired. Do they revisit that player because you did lose two defensive tackles in DJ Terry and Devon Sears this year? So maybe you just bring someone in, see who if they can compete for backup spots. Again, we won't dive deep into him. We'll talk about other positions, other players throughout this transfer portal season. So if you want to keep up to date, learn more names, hear our thoughts on what Oklahoma could potentially be doing, and when they finally actually get some of these guys, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and hit the comment section down below. Let us know what you think about all these players we talked about, and if there's any other guys that you want Oklahoma to go after in this transfer portal. We appreciate y'all watching. We'll see you next time.